The farmland near Peterborough, Ontario hasn't changed much since the first settlers arrived in the early 1800s. The same plots of land have passed from generation to generation of family farmers. Their history is still familiar to them, but in one township, a part of that history some would prefer to forget is resurfacing. It's all because of Robert Winslow. He's the last of his family in the area, and he had a three-part dream: to return to the family farm, to start a theater company, and to explore the area's history in drama.
Very personal story for me. I've worked all over the country, and my mom died 2 years ago, and I made a decision to come back here and try to hang on to the farm. It's been in our family since 1852, so it's been a real exploration of my own attachment to this place, as well as exploring history.
Send McGuire a message.
Warming up is Winslow's fourth-line theater company. The term community theater seems to have been invented to describe this outfit, a collection of friends, amateurs and professionals, among them a bartender, a building contractor, students, and a couple of waitresses. They're preparing to uncover the past.
You stupid bitch!
Cavan Township is a pleasant, pastoral little place, but it hasn't always been so. 150 years ago, Catholics and Protestants fought a bitter, often violent religious war here that tore the township in two. Well, it's happening all over again right now as descendants of those religious warriors sit and watch the conflict played out once more, this time on a stage of sorts.
No, I like to do
Put your arms through.
Winslow's play, The Cavan Blazers, faced a variety of challenges: an untried cast, a wardrobe begged and borrowed, and a backstage area that once housed livestock but is now crammed with old and young cast members. The biggest chance taken by Winslow, a first-time playwright, was in his hope that people would tramp out to his family farm and sit on hard benches, rain or shine. He was as surprised as anyone when an unexpected flood of local folk filled the yard to participate in what turns out to be something like a mass seance. The play tells of the earliest days of Cavan Township and the arrival of a group of Catholics into a predominantly Protestant area. The division and violence that resulted has long been the stuff of legend in the area.
Yes, the Catholics of Cavan will finally begin to take their rightful place in this community. And good people, this is long, long overdue. I invite you all, Protestant and Catholic alike, to come and attend the ceremony and to hear the first Catholic Mass ever to be spoken in Cavan.
The area's history is shot through with religious rivalry. The first Peterborough area settlers were Irish Protestants, but then in 1825, hundreds of Catholics arrived and were dispersed to the northeast in Douro Township, to the northwest in Ennismore, and finally to Cavan. Here they faced palpable hatred. Making drama from this was brave. To stage it on a farm was, to Winslow's friends, simply eccentric.
It was beautiful the end of August last year, and I walked out to the fence behind the barn, and I just sort of leaned over the fence, and I looked up towards the woods, and I sort of saw one of the scenes from the play. I saw the horses coming over the hill, and then I turned and looked at the barn, and I saw another scene, and it felt right that this is the place I want to do it in. Talking to people out here, I mean, it was the most difficult, trying to get people in this community to kind of go with the idea, because I didn't want to hurt people's feelings. I didn't want to intrude on the sacredness of their history and their families and their past. Yet at the same time, I felt it was very important that this story come out, because I think it's not, let sleeping dogs lie is not the best thing. I think this secret, or this anti-Catholicism has sort of set in this township for 150 years.
Some would wish it were never spoken of again. Before opening night, Winslow received a warning from Eileen Young, a Peterborough Catholic.
It is disturbing, to say the least, to envisage the possible erosion and shattering of those harmonious relations if your play fans those old flames of hatred into a conflagration, Mr. Winslow.
Mr. Winslow, you will fan the flames of hatred into a conflagration once again. Make no mistake, this may happen. I felt, insecure and vulnerable.
These are the Cavan Blazers, and they are ranting against the Pope. This sort of thing disturbs Catholics still and makes Eileen Young a little tense.
Priest to Cavan! Believe it!
Young's ancestors were Catholics in the surrounding townships, and the stories were handed down about how the Blazers treated other Catholics.
I remember the Orangemen burned my Uncle Sam and burned his hair, and the Cavan Blazers burned their cows' tails and horses' tails and burned their barns and drove them right out of Cavan.
Once the priest steps foot in Cavan, they'll start flooding in by the hundreds.
More priests!
More Catholics by the hundreds. And we'll be worse off than we were in dear old Ireland.
We can't let this happen!
No!
Cavan is Protestant, it must remain so!
Yes, sir! So what do we do then? I think before the priest ever sets foot in this township, we should toss Maguire out! To hell with the Pope and Paddy Maguire!
Young people especially seeing all that done with the Pope and to hell with Paddy Maguire. And I thought that might, that stay with them, that thought. And it's such a negative, violent thought. Things can be buried for years and you can let them go and forget them, but if you go and dig them all up, the muck and the dirt, and drag it all up and portray it for everybody to see, that it might fan the flames again. But perhaps it didn't. I hope it didn't.
Winslow's spectacle pulls out all the stops as 1850s Orangemen celebrate an ancient but familiar ritual. In the audience, Father Tom Lynch, once an area pastor, who as well has a stake in the play. In their provocation, the Orangemen come up against Paddy Maguire. He was Father Lynch's great-great-great-granduncle. His dream was to build a Catholic settlement in Cavan, and he bore the brunt of Orange violence.
We'll do whatever we bloody well please, payback!
You have no right to even march this day. This parade is unlawful. Get moving now!
I was raised hearing the story of how Patrick Maguire was burnt out. Mass was being said in his house, and they actually started fire either on the veranda or the back kitchen. We don't know which one. So we were always told these kinds of things. And I think told them as if to say, well, that was then and this is now.
The now, when Lynch was growing up, was less violent, but Catholic and Protestant areas were clearly defined and defended.
If you wanted trouble, and there were all kinds of, at dances and things, there were young guys that wanted to go for a fight or something, you knew where to go for a fight too, but that hasn't changed.
The dramatic violence makes Father Lynch smile now, but the threat of it is a recent memory. After the Catholics were driven from Cavan, 113 years passed before Mass was said there again in 1967.
We know that day there were bomb threats that, about violence going to be done on the Catholics. And I remember one woman who's still here, and she said she had 5 little children, and her husband wasn't Catholic, and she was going to bring these children. She thought maybe we'll get stoned when we come out of there, but they didn't.
When he was growing up, Lynch held his own with the young Protestants. He is now a well-liked personality in Millbrook, Cavan's largest town. That would have seemed an impossible goal for the first priest to enter the area in the 1850s. Some who see the play are taken aback by the depth of the hatred that separated the two groups. That hatred was centuries old, fed by legends of mutual brutality back in Ireland. Father Lynch can't help but see a wider contemporary lesson in this.
Can you tell me, gentlemen, am I on the right road to Patrick Maguire's?
To hell with the Pope and Paddy Maguire!
I see.
A lot of things went through my mind about what's happening now in modern life, especially in a place like Yugoslavia, where you can see how things develop as people hold on to things, as they hold on to the past hurts, and how easily they erupt. So I found myself being really part of it. That's the thing that surprised me. I really didn't think I would. I thought, well, I know the history, and I would be nice and removed, but I found myself getting very, very involved in it.
Get down on your knees.
What?
Get down on your knees.
I will not.
Before you go on your way, Father, I want you to pray for our success in ridding Cavan of all Catholics.
Father in heaven, I pray for these men that they succeed in all good things they seek to do, and that they fail in all bad things. Amen.
He's tricking you, Dane. The bloody priest is tricking you. He ain't speaking out against his own people.
And I never will.
Say the prayer the way Dane says, you dirty pivot!
I pray for your soul it be not condemned to hell for what you do this day.
You Catholic devil!
Today in Millbrook, a healthy congregation of 200 Catholics meet weekly for Mass, most of them in a church shared with Protestants.
I think a lot of the people who built this church would be rolling in their graves if you could attach an energy outlet there. I mean, you wouldn't have to worry about an energy problem, but I'm sure they would be rolling in their graves to think that Catholics are having Mass here every Sunday.
We do this as a type to show that even as the Egyptian taskmaster persecuted the Lord's people, so are our Protestant fathers persecuted by popery until the Lord in his mercy delivered them.
The character leading the orange ritual here is Dane Swain, leader of the Cavan Blazers. Watching is one of his descendants, Cliff Swain.
No priest in Cavan! No priest in Cavan!
Most of the local graveyards contain a Swain or two, one of the oldest families in the area. Cliff now lives on the family farm first settled in 1818 by proud Protestant ancestors who had fled religious violence in Ireland. But the ancient Swains found they couldn't leave it behind.
I think it was primarily that they'd fought it out in Ireland previous to coming here, and they truly wanted to have some freedom from that religious strife. And the best way they knew, and I guess the most successful way they had, was having an all-Protestant or as many, of their own kind together as they could get. Unfortunately, I think, as Dane put it, they didn't get together and talk about it. They fought about it. And well, all you have to do is look at Ireland today, and you can see how far we've come anyway, because we're not fighting.
It's true they're not fighting now, but there is more to the Cavan Blazers than a simple recap of nasty stories. To put such an audience on the same land to replay the same battle is to offer some kind of reconciliation. It's a chance for local people to understand the violent lineage of whatever subtle mistrust still exists. Theater has many uses, but this company knows this is an important one. For Winslow, digging up the past was a way to wipe the slate clean, to shake off some bad habits.
Mistrust, distrust of others, bigotry, prejudice, of not just of Catholics, but of anybody from who is different at all. That could spill into Jews, blacks, people of other ethnic backgrounds. So for me, doing the play was a way to kind of purge and explore my own bigotry and intolerance. That I think maybe, nowadays we can say from the neck up we don't have any of these prejudices, but if you're raised in that and your community has been raised in that for generation after generation, those things are right into your blood. They're right into your attitudes at a very, very basic level. And I think theater has the potential to create a catharsis and to actually change those things. So for me, it's sort of the end of something in a way, the end of a long period of questioning my own attitudes.
It's also very much a beginning for a new theater company that was once worried that it would not be able to give tickets away. For his efforts, Winslow has his rewards: an unlikely hit, sold-out audiences, and a new future for both the family name and the family farm. For the Journal, I'm Paul McGrath.